All right. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the Five Talents podcast. We are pumped, super excited today to have Mr. Kevin Bupp. He is a well experienced commercial real estate investor, and we'll dig into his story in a minute. But let me just first say thanks for coming, Kevin.
Abel, yeah, no, thanks for having me. And well experienced. I think you just mean old when you say that, right?
Well, I,
Yeah,
I heard recently that age is not equivalent to experience. That
yeah.
true wisdom comes from experience that's been tested and trial, and that's kind of where I categorize you
There you
at, my
go.
friend. But I have a little gray in my beard, as you can see, and I'm sure all of us that are a little more aged probably have something similar. But
Oh, that's funny. I didn't shave yesterday. My wife, I shave every day with the exception of yesterday. And she's like, God, you look old. All the gray. She hasn't seen
that's
it. It was brown last time I let it grow out for a day or two, and it was all gray. And so she was a little shocked.
Not anymore, right? We're getting older,
Yeah.
man. We're getting
Age
older.
like fine
Well,
wine, man.
yeah, you're getting better with age, baby. There you go, Kevin. Well, for those that don't know Kevin, I mean, he's a when I say experienced real estate investor, man, the guy has $250 million of real estate transactions under his belt in one form or fashion or another. And their team, they've done apartment buildings, single family portfolios, medical offices, self storage, assisted living. I know he's got some favorites that we'll talk about too, but mobile home parks, parking lots, and some build to rent, which we're also doing as well. And the published author. We'll talk about his book as well. Best-selling Amazon, book as well, and just a lot of experience. So we're excited to have you. But Kevin, in your own words, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do, and we'll just start a great conversation here.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I've been a full time investor my entire, I guess, adult life. Abel, I always joke and say that I've never had a real job. I got really lucky. Real estate found me. I didn't find it, and so very grateful for that pivotal moment in my life. But it found me back when I was 19 years old. I was going to community college and attending bar in the evenings, having fun, not really knowing exactly what I was going to do in life when I grew up, right? And I knew I wanted to do something big. I just didn't know what that meant. And again, real estate found me, by happenstance through a girl I was dating. Her mother was dating this guy named David. And David happened to be a local real estate investor. Really, it just came out of nowhere, and his life looked very different than mine growing up. I wasn't poor, but I mean, he just lived a very different lifestyle. Both my parents were hard workers, worked a typical 9 to 5, for many, many years. My mom worked literally third shift because they didn't have the money for like, daycare or have someone over the house watching us, when we got home from school. And so they would kind of rotate shifts and things like that. And so just, we got by, but to me, it was all relative. I don't look back and say I didn't have certain things. We went on one family vacation a year, that was just normal to us. And, life was great. But again, meeting David and just learning about his business, his lifestyle, and the flexibility I always saw. He was always out and about at odd times. Odd times to me were like 9 through 5 when people were supposed to be at work, right? Adults were supposed to be at work. So
Yeah, on a Monday afternoon
that's
at
it.
1 o'clock Central
That's
Standard
it.
Time. You're like, oh,
That's
listening to Facebook right now. Okay, what's
yeah.
going on?
So I befriended David, and shortly thereafter, he invited me to a real estate conference. My guess is I look back, and I've never asked him this question. I should, but just what made him invite me to this conference, because I didn't understand it, what he really did. I understood he owned real estate, but I didn't know the mechanics behind it, and just I didn't even know the right questions really asked and understand his business fully. But he invited me to this conference, which I found out was it was like he paid like $3,500 for it. It was like a 3-day event, and I'm like, well, I mean, he paid for it. I mean, I would be stupid not to go, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm going to learn, but I would be stupid not to go. And so I went, and that's where it jumped off. That was I was 19, and I came back from that conference. It was teaching you how to fix and flip homes and wholesale homes, and he didn't do a lot of that. He was more buy and hold, but he was always trying to sharpen his pencil and just continue to to gain knowledge and learn new strategies. And I simply, Abel, I came back from that event overwhelmed and excited, but overwhelmed. And I knew that excitement would probably go away if I didn't actually put something into action. But I literally didn't know where to start. And so what I did know is that Dave was about 25 years older than I, and I knew that he was a solopreneur. I mean, he was other than some contractors. I mean, he was a one-man show. And he struggled a great deal with the technology, just at that point in his life. I was trying to think of a way, how do I bring value to him so that in turn I can kind of learn what it is he's doing and actually become a part of this thing and be around him more. Not in a just a recreational state, seeing him out and about when I was over at my girlfriend's house, but like be around him in a professional state and learn his business inside and out. And so that's what I did. I ended up being kind of his, I don't know, his whatever he needed type of guy. Like I became his admin. I would go, deliver, lease agreements, get them signed. I would go to Home Depot, pick up supplies, drop them off for contracts. I'd do whatever he needed help with. And in exchange for that, I learned a ton, and I did that over about 14 months. That's how long it took me before I got comfort to buy my first property. I was 20 years old. I had about $7,500 saved up of bartending money, and I pulled the trigger and leveraged a private lender that I met through him, that he had done business with for many years. And that was the start of it. And I didn't reinvent the wheel. I literally tried to follow his model. Realized very quickly that I ran out of capital in that first deal, and that measly $200 a month of cash flow, it was going to take me a very long time to save up enough to do another home. Right. And that's when I made the pivot to start wholesaling a couple homes, keep one, wholesaling, keep one. And so I did that for many, many years and built up quite a large portfolio of single family properties. And then, over time transitioned into different types of assets. As you had mentioned, I've owned just about, I'm not going to say every type of commercial real estate, but the major food groups, most of them. And about 10 years ago, landed on mobile home parks, and more recently started buying parking lots and parking garages. That's over a 20-year, roughly a 20-year span. And so seen a lot, done a lot, been involved in a lot, had a lot of fun, had a lot of challenges, and but it's been a great ride.
All right. Oh man, what a great opening story here, man. I think that gives everyone the opportunity just to kind of relate, and depending on where you're coming from as a listening in. There's a few things that I heard I want to circle back on, because whether you are a young person, an individual that's just starting out, or whether you have some means to yourself today, there's some very applicable things that Kevin already mentioned. And I want to make sure we rehash them, right? As I think the first one is your willingness to say yes. So someone offered you the opportunity to, hey, attend a conference. They paid for the event. You just have to go, and your willingness to say yes was one of the first things that a lot of people are so close-minded and very close to their vest on showing people their cards or whatever I have or I don't, or I want to become, just the ability to say, you know what, let me go. I'll go for the weekend. And that was an investment of your time, not knowing what the outcome was. So just the willingness, for Kevin to say yes. And then I think the education part is huge. Most people don't want to, number one, take education or pay for the education, or put in the risk of time to come out with that education. And then I think the next one I heard was, man, I got to apply it. If you didn't put any action to it, that education is not going to do anything for you. Right. So those are huge. And you volunteered for 14 months. You kind of, let me just volunteer. Let me just help somebody. Let's just try to go through that stuff. So all of those things, those are great kind of lessons for all of us to apply, no matter where we're at.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it was, just again, I spoke to David, finding the weak point, right? I very quickly saw technology was his weak point, and I didn't finish the rest of that little piece of the story, but I think it's important, because I think if you can identify a void in someone's business that maybe is already doing what you want to do, and that has much more expertise than yourself, if you can identify some type of weak link in their chain, then, and if that's a skill set that you already possess, or one that you feel you can learn fairly quickly, then that might be a quick shoe in to bring value to them and their team. And so again, I saw him struggling putting together a PowerPoint presentation for one of his private lender on it was a package deal. He was buying like 3 homes, and it literally took him hours upon hours to put together the most basic PowerPoint presentation that I could have thrown together in 10 minutes. Right. I knew right then and there, like, I can help him at least in this. And then it obviously spawned into many other things, right, where he saw that I could bring a lot more value to the table. But no, it's just everyone out there. I know that we've got weak links in our chain, in our business, right? Like there's voids that, help me identify that void and show me how you can do it better than I. And I would love to to see how we can work together. Right. It's
Yeah.
just as easy as that.
Yeah. We're the same way. We have people reach out to us and they're like, can I help? And I'm like, I don't know what you can do or can't, but
Right.
I have a lot of things going on, and to take a moment and slow down and show somebody else how to do it, it's a little difficult, in the
Mm-hmm.
normal daily business. But if somebody can identify a weak point up front and say, "Hey, Abel, I'd like to help you with A, B, C, X, Y, Z," I'm like, man, I would love your help with the administration stuff of investor relations. There, like, man, let's try to figure out a point in my business that you can assist with, right? So, anyways, I love it. Yeah, you gotta get your mentor, get some education, be willing to take action, be able to move forward, and then just capitalize, find the weak point and then go
That's right.
volunteer, go make it happen. So this is great. Thanks a lot, Kevin, for helping us here. Okay, so you go in and you're doing a deal, and now you've gotten commercial real estate experience, raising capital, syndicating deals, hundreds of millions of dollars of transactions under your belt. Man, maybe just give us a few nuggets for the moment. Like, what did you learn that you think was the most valuable, kind of summation of these events, and how can we apply them to our lives today, man? What do you think, man?
Yeah, no, I mean, one that comes to mind, and it might be redundant for maybe, the same thing maybe a few other guests have said, but just really, transitioning from buying single family properties back when I got started to buying larger, whether it be just commercial deals or multifamily. Multifamily was the first transitional point that I made. I started buying, and it happened by accident. It literally wasn't even planned out. I invested some money in a 24 unit property, and what I noticed very quickly was the efficiencies that I gained that I didn't have in my large single family home portfolio. And I had about 124 single family properties spread amongst a few different counties. And this is back when technology existed back then, but like the management side of a scattered portfolio like that, it was not nearly as efficient as what technology has allowed it to be today. And so the big inefficiencies were having maintenance guys and leasing guys running all over the place right amongst these different properties. Whereas buying a multifamily property, a larger scale in one location, it just made a light bulb go off my head. And so it was a huge pivotal moment. I looked back at how much time, energy, and effort I put into assembling this 100+ unit single family home portfolio. I mean, I wasn't married, didn't have kids, and I just worked nonstop, and I busted my butt for years to pull that together. And then very quickly realized a few years later that I could have literally just done one deal that would have been that size or larger, right? And so I'm simplifying that a little bit, but not really, And another key lesson that I identified, and this is going back, many years. Lending programs have changed and have evolved over time. But back then, getting single family loans, and package investment loans, it was very difficult. It was very challenging to do. Today it's a little different, but I will say that getting a loan on a quality multifamily asset in a good market, so assuming you've got the actual equity piece of it and you've got the net worth, requirements, it's it's a lot easier. I'm just going to say it's easier than assembling a 120 unit portfolio, one loan at a time. Like it's way less brain damage. Right. And so again, just this identifying the ability to have larger scale and not be scared away just because it's got an extra couple zeros at the end of it. Right. And when I learned that, it was a game changer. Like I never looked back. I said, that's it. Like that, there's no other way. Why would I buy another single family home ever again? And I'm not saying they're a bad investment. There's plenty of people that model works well for, but for me, that was my business. I wasn't working a full-time job and just looking to buy a home a year, which that's a good model for some people. In 20 years, they've got, a 20 unit rental portfolio. It's offsetting their retirement income. And it's a beautiful model. There's a million different ways to slice and dice it. And there's no right or wrong way to make money in real estate. I would just say that for me, I wanted to find the most efficient way to scale a sustainable organization, one that allowed me the time and flexibility as I got married and had kids and all that to actually build a sustainable business that I wasn't, if I didn't show up, the business didn't run right. And I didn't want to have to hustle as hard later years. I didn't want to work 40 years hustling as hard as I did day one, year one as I did in year 40. And so the way to get there was commercial real estate. And again, there's many different asset classes that are phenomenal inside the commercial real estate world. And as you alluded to, we've started buying mobile home parks and parking lots and own a lot of everything else in between. And so, but those are some of the big lessons. I mean, that just some big takeaways of looking back, of just reflecting on the before and after is the best way to put it.
Right on. Thank you very much. I think looking back, what I heard is that 100 doors across many multiple locations, markets, submarkets, maybe even cities. Man, putting that together, number one, and then executing on the plan to make sure that it's running or performing correctly versus just being able to do potentially one loan, one deal, 100 doors all together. There's efficiencies in real estate that open up massive opportunities for investors. And if anybody's on this show right now, I think you're listening. We're talking about how to build wealth like the 1%, and we're really trying to talk about creating wealth, and then once we have wealth, how to preserve as much of it as possible. And I'll tell you one way for sure. If you want to take the longer route, the harder route, the slower route with as little as efficiency as possible, buy 100 single family houses in different areas of town. That is hard, and it takes a lot of work. So just kind of know that that's one of the reasons why commercial real estate is so effective in creating wealth and then building a lot of efficiencies. Another thing I just kind of reflect on is the first time that I learned about owning a business or a system as opposed to a company or being a solopreneur. I think we said that earlier, or just like a one-man show. If I created a business, but I'm the one working it from morning till night, 7 days a week, I've got a job.
You got a job.
That's for sure. I don't own a system that can work on its own when I'm not there. And I think that's another thing that, the commercial and especially syndication, the way we invest is, there might be some active participants like myself and Kevin putting the deals together, but if you're a passive investor, you've got a way to create a stream of cash flow without having to do any of the work. And that's an easy way to put something down, go grind in your area of expertise, take your money, invest it, and it scales very well. So those are great points to hit on, Kevin.
Yeah, you speak to the job, and a lot of folks, they want to go out on their own, do their own thing, whatever their previous line of work was. And I think there's such a major misconception of, they think in their mind, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm not going to take orders from anybody, and I'm going to have flexibility and freedom. And very, very few times, again, if you're going that solopreneur route, you're working probably double, right? And you might not have benefits now because you went out on your own, right? And like you actually can't even get a good healthcare plan anymore that you had through your employer. And, and then again, if you get sick, if something happens, if you break your foot, or if you do what, again, it's not a great plan. I'm not gonna say it's a bad plan. If you've got a bigger vision, like, hey, I'm gonna go out on my own, and in 6 months, I need to roll with this. And in 6 months, I'll look to make my first hire, second hire. And you got a strategy behind actually replacing yourself from having to be in the business, so that you can have that freedom, that flexibility, and that get your time back, right? That's the thing that we can't create more of. Get your time back so that you've got it to do whatever you so please, whether it's with your family or hobbies or travel, whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard that. I don't know where I got this from, but someone mentioned it, or I saw a meme or something on social. It was like, so many people forget why we wanted to create wealth in the first place. Like, why are we doing all this real estate? Why are we doing all these transactions? We forget, a lot of us, is, we wanted the outcome and the freedoms that money and real estate, the cash flow had provided. And then we end up working our tails off. But I mean, that's like, man, if you don't remember the main goal, like, we want the freedom, we want our time, we want the opportunity to do what we want to do when we want to do it. It's hard. Sometimes you get lost in that, but yeah, big reminder.
Yeah, no, I mean now I've got young kids and I've got a wife, and I really enjoy being there with them all the time, whether it be traveling or just at home playing sports, what have you. And so now I have the daily reminder of that, right? And it's embedded in my soul now. But you got to really be honest with yourself when you're going down this path of like what is the best and most efficient use of your time, and have that hard discussion internally, have it with your wife, have it with your friends, and get some additional perspectives as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, we're gonna keep grinding here. We're gonna keep grinding
All
literally on
righty.
this
All
virtual
righty.
podcast as well as at the house and our businesses, and we're gonna make the best life we possibly can. So we'll implore y'all to do that. So for some of our guests, our listeners, right? Let's maybe if we can take a turn here. I have a lot of investors that reach out to us, either existing investors or they want to be investors, or people with means, people maybe that are trying to create it, right? The goal is to create the wealth and then preserve the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
For those that are trying to create wealth, can you give them any advice from maybe some of the things you've seen on your end? You have a lot of investors you deal with, and for those that are trying to create wealth, what are some of the ways that you've seen success on from your investor base?
Yeah, and I think it's all dependent on how fast are you looking to accelerate that wealth growth, right? And where you're at in your current stage of life. I mean, are you a high income earner already, where you're making multiple six figures and you've got a good stable job, you actually enjoy it. You need things to help offset that, that realized income. You need some investments. You just don't have time to actually go physically do yourself, right? Because that's a very different position to talk to the guy that literally makes, he's I don't know, he does pest control, right? He makes $30,000 a year, but he wants bigger things in life, and ultimately he's not starting with a lot, right? He might have a few $100s or a few $1,000s in his bank account, and in order to ultimately achieve his dreams, and have them become a reality, he might have to make some more significant steps in the short term if it's, again, another accelerated path that we're looking for here. And so, speaking to the guy that's making 30 grand a year, that doesn't really, he wants to invest, he just doesn't have much disposable income to put into investments and to help grow. I figure they've what I've seen the most successful in real. Let's just speak to real estate, some strategies. Now, these are more active strategies, because I don't know if I've got good advice for that guy as far as like, how can you take $100 every paycheck and put it into a passive investment and expect to be wealthy in the next 15 years? It's just not. You can get lucky if you bought Bitcoin probably at the right time. Like he could have done that, right? But again, you surely can't. You can't take that to the bank, literally. And so with that individual, I've seen a lot of success with folks like that are getting started in real estate. Really build out a wholesaling machine, right? It's a very minimal expense to get into the business. And ultimately you get really good at finding opportunities, and that skill set will carry on for many years to come in your business, whether it be real estate or anything else. I mean, just getting really good at uncovering high quality deals, below the intrinsic market value, and then ultimately flipping them or wholesaling them to somebody else. But I think that's a great path for folks to start making chunks of money, that are already, they're making, they're barely getting by now, and they need chunks of money so they can turn around and redeploy that into, whether it be passive investments or redeploy back into their business, or get out of the rat race, right? And so I think that's a great start. It's a very low barrier to entry to get into that space. And so, and I've seen guys that have started doing the wholesaling thing, and then they realize, with single family, and then they've realized that there's an opportunity. Hey, I want to start buying multifamily, and I'm starting to uncover multifamily deals, and maybe I don't have the wherewithal, the means to actually take them down today by myself, but I could. Now I have a network. I have a list of multifamily buyers. I can flip these to them. And guess what? Not only am I going to make a chunk of money, but maybe they'll allow me to actually participate in this one. I'll just roll in my fee into this deal. And now you've actually got built-in partners. You got guys that are already doing what you hope to do. And so you've just automatically expanded that network. You start to grow your network. And so I think that's a great path. And if I had to go back and I was in that guy's shoes and I knew just a little bit and I knew about wholesaling, I think that's the path that I would take. Not knowing anything else, I think that's the path that I would take. And then, as far as the
before you move to on this point, right? For the person that doesn't have anything and you're trying to create it, that's an absolutely amazing path, in my opinion, too. You're trying to get more out of it. You're trying to learn. You're trying to educate yourself and take action More importantly, like you're in there, you're making offers, you're doing the LOI, you get over this mental hurdle, and then you can actually make something without a lot of income to go invest in the property because you're flipping a deal to somebody else, and there's a spread there, and you're trying to get a portion of it. But yeah,
Absolutely. That's how I found my first deal. I didn't end up wholesaling it, but I literally went and spent back then. I got 100 bandit signs printed. Actually, I didn't even, I didn't spend the money getting them printed. I bought a Magnum 44 black marker and I bought 100 blank bandit signs and some stakes. And I literally, wrote "We Buy Houses" on them, just like I was taught to do at the seminar. And I went and put them on every corner on telephone poles around town in the middle of the night, awesome. Like a bandit.
There you go. Like a bandit. Hey man, make it happen.
And that's how I got I got a number of leads, but that's how I ultimately found my first investment property. And it cost me very little money to do.
Yeah. Even if it's not in real estate, if you don't have anything, you have to realize that, $30K a year is your living expense. You're not going to have anything to invest with. There is no passive income for you yet. It is, how do I go grind? If you Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, that's what you do for your profession, whatever it is. You have to figure out how to put your nights and weekends together in lunch hours together to do something to create a seed. The moment you have at least one seed, you can kind of keep planting for the years ahead, but you got to have a seed in your hand if you want to put it to work. So that's number one. I absolutely agree, Kevin. So, okay. So we've talked about this a minute, and there's tons of education that's free. You can follow Kevin's what's your podcast name?
Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow.
Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow. So if you're trying to create some cash flow, that's a good one. You can follow ours. You can go to YouTube. You can research a lot of these terms. You can figure out how to create wealth. I mean, a seed to go invest. Just you have to grind. Like there's no way around that. You got to figure out a way to make some money to go invest. Now, the second one I'd love to ask you about, Kevin, is there's a lot of people that follow us, the real estate investing, either the conferences or the masterminds, and they've created their at least means of investment already. Professionals making good money, high net worth individuals, and now they have something to invest with. They're just not sure what to do and how to do it. And they're like, should I buy a house? Should I invest in syndication? Should I do corporate structures? What's the best path? From your standpoint, from your investor base, what do you see your most successful investors? What are they doing differently than everyone else?
Yeah. And I think there's two additional buckets. There's, these individuals we're speaking to, really, I can separate those into two different buckets. You got the high income earner that makes a lot of money, but still doesn't have, whatever he or she defines as wealth, right? Like they don't have that nest egg there yet. And so they're in this growth mode, right? Like they need to continually compound their earnings and their investments and deployment to new deals so they can see that growth or whatever that period of time is that they're hoping to achieve, financial freedom or wealth. And then you got the other bucket is kind of the wealth preservation. Like they've made it. They're not willing to take as much risk. They kind of want to set it and forget it, having stable investments, and they've made it. They just can't lose it now. Right. And so they're not necessarily looking to grow at they're okay growing as long as they keep up with inflation, right? Like that's kind of where they're looking at things. I just don't want to lose anything. And so, back to that middle bucket, the high income earner that still has not achieved that wealth stage yet. And, how do they get there? I think the first question they ask themselves, if they're a busy high income earner and they're working a 40, 50 hour work week, which is typical, if not more than that, then probably buying a single family home or trying to buy a few single family homes probably isn't the best path to take. It's just, you're going to, whether you like it or not, even if you have a third party management company, you're going to have some involvement again in that deal, in the day to day of that deal, or the month to month of that deal. You're going to have some involvement. And I think the best path to take for that individual is, we talk about syndications, and they come in a wide variety, but I think more specific to that person trying to find some significant growth trajectory, they need to be doing value add deals, something that's got a value add component to it that can really juice some short-term IRRs, so they can continue compounding that growth over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 years. But more importantly of finding value add deals, it's I don't think the asset's as important. Like I love multifamily, I love mobile home parks. I think the most important aspect of finding, where to go next is finding the right jockey, right? Like finding the right jockey to go ride with, the right team, the right sponsor that has got the track record. They've got the experience. They've got a good, solid balance sheet, because ultimately, like you don't you don't have the money to risk. You're not there yet. The guy that's just in wealth preservation mode, if he loses a little bit, like it's not the end of the world. Like he's already there. He's good, right? But you need to make the right decisions from the get go, and find the right horse to go ride with. And I think that's the most important. And obviously the asset class is important, but I think the sponsor behind it is by far more important than the asset class or the market that the asset's in, hands down. And so I think get really good, spend a good amount of your free time getting to meet sponsors, studying their business model, learning the ins and outs of what do they do differently than maybe another sponsor that's running the same asset class. And, take the time to do that. Take time. Don't rush into it. Don't just go put, $100,000 with a sponsor because their marketing packages look pretty. Because honestly, like all the marketing packages look really, really pretty, right? And so you got to find
what's behind
That's
the minimum
there.
now.
Yeah. What's behind the curtain there. And so that I think that truly is the path. And that path wasn't as readily accessible. It was always accessible to accredited investors. It was just, if you didn't know, then you didn't know. And, unless you're part of the country club scene and had friends that were doing, private offerings, because they couldn't advertise it back then. And so, unless you were part of that network, then you didn't have the opportunity. But now, with some changes that have happened, it's available. It's in the mainstream. So now it's overwhelming because there's so many options out there. You got to take your time and study these different options and get a firm grasp of, again, the sponsor team and the asset class, the markets that they're in. And again, what really separates them from the next. Go meet them in person, fly to the market, go look at the assets. This is an investment in your education still at this point in time, right? Like suck up the $1,000 plane ticket to go fly and spend a day and have lunch with a potential sponsor that you're looking at investing with. And again, listen to if your gut's telling you otherwise, if you're not feeling comfortable, keep going down that journey, keep going down that road. You're going to find good sponsors. You're going to find good people that have a great track record that can help you find that wealth that you're seeking.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a passive investor and you're trying to figure out, man, who to invest with, how to invest, what should I do? I say that three things. They're the deal, the market, and the team. And you have to spend your time investing in learning about the team, who's running it and which markets they're in and what kind of deals. And the more you spend your time in educating yourself in that area as a passive investor, you have way more success than someone who's not doing that. So
yeah, because at the end of the day, here's the thing, a team could find a phenomenal, let's just hypothetically say it doesn't really exist in the multifamily space nowadays, it's so competitive, but like, let's say that, the team found a 100-unit apartment complex for 30% under market value. God, what a steal, and a great market, right? Like it doesn't happen, but hypothetically, it's happening right now. And so they've got a pretty big buffer there. I mean, they've got a fairly big buffer compared to to what the retail deals have been transacting at, and so they could still make a few mistakes here and there, and those mistakes would be covered up by, again, that equity buffer that they've built in there. However, if that team absolutely sucks wind and they're just not good at asset management, they're not good at overseeing the property management group, and they're not good at placing the right type of debt on the property, or that's really having that structure in place as to when to identify when's the best time to exit, how much money should we be putting into each of these units as far as renovations and really juicing our ROI and all those things. Like if they're not good at the mechanics behind the scenes, then that really great deal could turn into a horrible deal, could be a lousy deal, right? And so it's just the sponsor is everything. It's really the first stepping stone.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you very much for the insight, right? Kevin, just as we learn more, as you're an investor and you're trying to figure out, hey, where to take risk and where not to, these are absolutely valuable things that you need to know. Oh, I'm willing to take risk here. I have, try to mitigate as much as I can of my risk here, but you don't want to make that misstep and lose this seed that you've taken so long and worked so hard just to get so you can plan. So that's why the investment, like Kevin said, is $1,000 on a plane ride, a couple $100 more for a hotel and getting out there, and Kevin's open to it. I'm sure, as he said, as we are too. Like anytime you want to come out, San Antonio or Kevin's respective areas, you reach out to him. So
Yep,
on this
absolutely.
note, who do you want to go reach out to you, Kevin, and where should they go if somebody wants to get in your world, somebody listening right now?
No, that's a great question. As far as like who to reach out to me, I'm more than willing to lend a hand, where it's needed as far as helping folks get their first step, or if you're at the point to where you're looking for some passive investments, we'd be more than happy to talk to you about what it is we do. If you happen to find yourself in the Tampa Bay area, I live over in Clearwater, and at least a few times a month, I get folks that reach out to me that are in different stages of their business, whether they want to invest with us or whether they want to talk shop. I love meeting new people and expanding my network. So the best place to reach me is just go through my website, the contact us page, kevinbupp.com. And I love the business, man. I'm passionate about it. I love talking shop, and I love meeting others that share that same passion.
Yeah, great, man. I thank you so much. Did your area fare pretty well with the hurricane, all the stuff?
Yeah, we got really
Man,
lucky. We got incredibly lucky. We, it was supposed to impact us directly, and I literally live as a crow flies, 100 yards from the Gulf of Mexico, and so, my house would have been underwater. But our neighbors to the south of us, 2 hours, it's catastrophic. My wife and I put together a food drive over Friday and took a whole trailer full of like gasoline and water and food and down to Cape Coral, which is one of the primary areas that were impacted, and it's a war zone, man. It's really really bad. So we got spared. Unfortunately, others got the brunt of it.
yeah. Well, our
Yeah,
hearts go out to you, and
yeah,
I'm going to say a quick prayer for anybody in the area that's just affected by the situation, family, friends. Lord Father, we just ask that you bless them, provide some means, some ability, some people to go help them right now, and we just say thank you, Lord Father, for the protection that you provided through the process. So. Just thought I'd break real quick. I'm like
no, it's
felt
appreciate
the
that.
felt the call. Let's do it real quick. Hey, for those that are listening, is there any good um, organizations or things that you're thinking of where if we wanted to go volunteer either some time or some money, your local kind of ish in the area,
Yeah,
who should be reaching out
that's
to?
funny. I wish I had. We're still trying to figure that out ourselves, because we can continue to take supplies down, and there's a large number of organizations, nonprofits from all across the country. I saw license plates from Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama. I mean,
Yeah,
literally. But I just, the first couple of days of these events, I've been through a couple hurricanes now, and it takes a little bit to kind of flesh out and find out who the good organizations are that are actually making sure that the goods and the monies are actually going to the people that really need it. And so I wish I had the answer, and I don't, because I really like to help more. And so
yeah,
that's why what we're doing at present, I know that I'm physically handing. It's probably
literally.
not the most efficient way to do it, but at this point, I'm handing it to people that literally need it. They haven't had water. They're cut off from the rest of the world for a period of time. Like, they need the goods. They need gasoline to run a generator to have lights in their house and things like that. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Well,
I
go
don't
do
have the
some
answer, but
internet.
I'd say just keep doing searches, and you'll find,
Yeah.
in the next day or two, that those resources will flush themselves out. And I would
I
say
was
that,
about to suggest the same. I'm like, well, internet day and age, if you're listening and use
yeah,
this as an opportunity, just go Google it real quick and see where you can give to. And
yeah,
it's a,
normally the media exaggerate, in every other sense of life, the media exaggerates how bad things really are. But I would say that it's worse than what's being shown on the few different clips that they keep rotating over and over again. It's pretty horrific. It's bad
oh,
down there. So for those that are
oh,
listening, yeah, please do anything you can. Take a few moments, go do some searches online, find organizations that are helping, and if you got any means, even if it's $5, any little bit helps, because
yeah.
there's so many that were impacted that are without a home, without shelter. The shelters are overrun. There's no fuel down there. There's no cell service. We had no cell, for a good 50
Man,
mile stretch of the trip, no cell service
that's hard.
whatsoever, and just people are literally like on their own island. It's they're stranded. So
All right. Well, we'll
yeah,
continue praying. And
yeah,
Kevin, thank you very much, for the time. Is there before I let you go? I'm
yeah,
sorry in the last few minutes, right? Is there anything we didn't talk about that you think it would be good to highlight,
yeah,
just kind of off the top of my
yeah.
head
No, and we had talked about this a little bit, Abel. I recently wrote a book, and I think it'd be great for those that are just getting into commercial real estate, trying to find your path. It's right behind me here. It's called the Cash Flow Investor. You can grab a copy on Amazon for $20, or I've made a copy available for free for you guys for listening in here. And you can go to kevinbupp.com/free book. And in here it's partially my story over the last 20 years. It's also, tidbits from the, 600 plus interviews that I've done over the last 8 years doing my show. I've interviewed some incredibly prominent commercial real estate investors and developers. And then aside from that, I really go into detail on, my 5 favorite asset classes. And I'm not going to share them with you. I'm going to keep it a secret. You have to go in here and check it out. And I go into detail on each one of those asset classes. One of them is obviously mobile home parks, but there's 4 others in there as well. But I think it's a really good starting spot for those that are looking to not just transition to commercial real estate, but are also looking to try to find the right path to go down. There's just a little bit of everything in here that will help you guys out. So,
I love it. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, Kevin. And man, it's been a fun conversation. Look forward to meeting you in person sometime in the future.
I agree.
And just great opportunity to have you on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You're able. It's been a lot of fun. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend. You're helping tons and tons of people out there. So really appreciate that.
Thank you much. Thank you much. Again, this is Abel Pacheco, your host for the 5 Talents podcast. If you heard something today, any nugget that is either a valuable paradigm shift or just some really good education, go like and subscribe, review to our podcast. Go ping Kevin, do the same on his show and his media outlets, because the more that you support, the more it gives us the opportunity to just keep going. So we appreciate it. And thank you very much for everyone's time. All right. Bye-bye.